Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. The BSE Sensex, the benchmark index of the Indian stock market, crossed 75,000 points for the first time in history. It came just days before the start of the 2024 general elections. Now the Sensex had crossed the 25,000 milestone on the 16th of May 2014, the exact day the 2014 general election results were announced. Now 10 years since then, investor wealth has gone up by 5 times. And as Lok Sabha elections 2024 draw closer, investors are expecting a stable government under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, who is seen as industry friendly. Will the election results result in maintaining status quo? Will it throw up a surprise? How will the elections play up the India growth story in the times to come? Joining me to discuss this today evening are DILIP CHENOY, SANJAY AGGARWAL, and my colleagues Sridharan Ramakrishnan and Amit Ranjan. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. Mr. CHENOY, I want to start by narrating this little anecdote. You know, a few years back, at least a decade ago, I spoke to a foreign investor. He came to India and he was, despairing at the India growth story. And he says there doesn't seem to be a long-term vision for India, the India story. And he said that the only people who seem to have a long-term vision are the Maoists, right? Fighting the government in central India. They have a plan of capturing power by 2045 or 2055. You know, I talk about this frequently because it kind of tells you the importance of a roadmap, a long-term vision for the country, for the economy. Tell us how important this long runway is for the economy when you're talking of milestones like 2030, 2047.
I think, Sandeep, if you look at the past history of India, we were kind of confined in 5-year buckets, 5-year plan, etc. But over the last 5 to 7 years, we've been actually talking of 10 years, 15 years, and now even talking of 2047, right? And not only are we talking about it, but if you look at, say the next 100-day plan or the next 5-year plan or the 2047 plan, a lot of the civil servants, a lot of the ministries have got together and actually put in a roadmap. So for an investor from overseas and even for domestic industry, for all of industry that is here, having a clear roadmap that there's going to be no flip-flop of policy, the direction is going to be the same, is very, very important. And therefore, in the context of this program that you're saying, that this long-term indication and long-term, growth-friendly attitude and approach is really reaping dividends. And I think more and more investors are looking at India, and even Indian investment over the last few months, which was stagnant during the COVID period, is slowly picking up.
Right, absolutely. Sri, 20% of the world growth over the next decade could come from India. How impressive is that? It's a huge number.
Absolutely, Sandeep, because time and again it's been pointed out that Indian economy is the bright spot in the global landscape. So just to add to what Mr. CHENOY was saying, see, obviously the stability in terms of policy is very important, but we must not forget that we have 10 years of really deep fundamental reforms which are behind this tailwind. And there's also a certain amount of geopolitics which is playing out to India's favor, especially with the money moving away from the Chinese market to India. We know about large funds which are moving or increasing the allocation away from other markets towards India. So there's a plenty of liquidity which has come into the market, and that's purely because of people see that India is on a very stable growth path, not for the next 5 years, perhaps even for the next 10 years or 15 years going forward. So I think there's a new confidence which global investors are displaying in the Indian economy, and that's what we're seeing in the market today, Sandeep, to my mind.
Right. Mr. Aggarwal, the new confidence that Sri just mentioned, that global investors have reposed in India, the India growth story. Elon Musk is coming here in a few days, and that's going to be another big story that we'll be tracking. But how important are these signs that you're seeing around us? This, constant this thing of the India growth story, this vote of confidence, if I may say, in the India growth story.
You see, vote of confidence comes about only when there are genuine reasons for anybody to feel the confidence, to see the confidence. And you see, this is something that took a bit of time coming, but you know, we have to appreciate that we are now the largest population in the world.
Yes.
Even earlier, it used to be just slightly lower than China. There was a certain momentum to our economy which both held it back and which was both also underpinning at the same time.
Yes.
So, despite sometimes tailwinds, sometimes headwinds, both ways, overall the country was always on a path of growth. And this has been consolidated continuously over the period since the reform started in 1991.
Right.
And that, I believe, has come to a stage where, with the proactive steps being taken by successive governments, especially during the last 10 years, that the focus on better economic governance has taken place.
Right.
I think we are reaching a momentum which is, you know, a reflection of the strength of the economy of the country, of the systems that we have, of the you know, the instabilities that we have left behind us. Now we are a country with a continuous growth story every year, so a sustainable growth story of 6, 7, 8% on GDP. We are a country which has now gone to 600 billion plus dollar reserves of foreign exchange, and even the trade balance is now looking much better than it used to look earlier.
Right.
Couple that with the geopolitical scenario in which people do not wish to indefinitely depend upon China. In China, everybody faced difficulty, especially during the COVID period. This is a time when you need China plus one, then you have some smaller countries which are attractive, but then they have the limitation in terms of their own size itself.
Right.
So it's India which can have the depth of both the market and the size of the economy to host such large industries and to, you know, to have that sort of investment happening in the country.
Absolutely.
So and that is the reason why. That is the reason why, as a nation, I think all the predictions that are there, they are, of course, clearly coming true. The CAGR that our Sensex has achieved of, you know, it's crossed 75,000. It's got a CAGR of more than 11% in the past 10 years.
Yes.
But if you look at even 40 years, then it's 15%. Over the past 40 years, the CAGR of Sensex has been 15%.
Right.
So that tells you that earlier the situation was very bad. Now, the only way was up, and it has really translated in a reality. And that's what is really driving this.
Right, absolutely. And Amit, you I remember 2 years back, you began this series on News9 Plus called Bulletproof India and Bulletproof Economy. From bulletproof economy to bullish on Modi, just tell us what are the 5 big things that have really helped. Why is the industry so enthused about Prime Minister Modi? You just come back from Bombay. What's the Bombay Club, if I may say so, saying?
Yeah, so one is the price to earning. If I look at only the stock markets, we say that it's crossed 75,000, but the price in terms of price to earning ratios, India is number 2 only to New Zealand. We have beaten everybody, not just emerging economies, USA, Canada, France. We have beaten all of them as of 9th of April. What has happened in the favor of India is some bad moves that China has made.
Yes.
So the manufacturing supply chain is shifting out of China.
Right.
There are few takers, but the biggest one obviously is India. There's Vietnam, there's Indonesia, of course, Saudi Arabia. They're all there. But the biggest market is India.
Right.
So that has its own attraction for foreign players.
Yes.
Be it the next frontier industries, which this government, Mr. Modi, has been talking a lot about, whether it is AI, whether it is semiconductors, whether it is defense, space tech, they're all basically coming to
the Panch Pandavs as one of your
you just mentioned Elon Musk is coming to India. So these are the things that have worked in favor of India, and of course, as our experts said, some proactive steps that have been taken in the last 10 years with focus on sustained growth.
Right, absolutely.
So,
yes,
I just want to mention 2 things, Sandy. You know, I've been a business editor for several decades now.
Yes.
And earlier I remember, people would always say that, Indians, you guys are too pessimistic about your own country. And it was always a foreign investor who was optimistic about India putting the money. In fact, the situation was such that people would say that we have exported our stock market to the foreigners.
Absolutely.
That was the allegation against the Indian stock market. But now if you look at what's happening, the amount of money which the average Indian, the household is putting into SIP, it's phenomenal. So this is a strong vote of confidence from Indians about their own economic future.
Absolutely, from sips
that's
to
number
big
one.
gulps.
Yeah, second, and there was a mention of China and the fact that it was a China +1.
Yeah.
But I think we moved from a point where it was China +1 to India being the one.
India being the one, interesting. Yes. And Mr. Chenoy, how much of, since we're talking about the one, how much of this has to do with leadership? Since we're talking about the markets, the economy, the world being so bullish on Prime Minister Modi, given the fact that, the unpredictability of the election scenario, I mean, we can't call out an election till it's held. What if another opposition party or something came to power? Will the Indian economy continue down the same path of growth, or will there be some kind of a course correction? How important is leadership, the leadership that Prime Minister Modi brings to the table?
I think there are three questions in that, Sandeep, and I'll take them one by one. First is, your first question was, will there be stability and long-term growth? Now, if you look at, if you see the Congress manifesto that came out and all the other things surrounding, there was pretty much stability on what will happen for industry.
Right.
There were some discordant notes here and there, but I think overall it has been a very positive kind of a step forward. And if you take the history of the last 4 terms, even when we had, very quick turnover of governments till the Manmohan Singh government came in, and, from P.V. Narasimha Rao, etc.
Right.
It was not very clear because the leadership could not articulate it so well.
Yes.
But there was a fairly good stability in the direction of policy.
Right.
And over the long term, you're saying fairly stable policy. What has changed here, and I come to your second point, is about leadership and communication, right?
Right.
Here, there's very clear leadership, and the leadership is saying that growth matters.
Yes.
India matters. India as a country is not. We're not saying that industry has to grow like this or that. We're saying India has to be a developed nation by 2047.
Right.
That's a fairly long-term vision statement. It means a lot of things. That means our per capita income has to go up. Different types of services, health, water, sanitation have to be in different level. Housing has to be different level. And people are seeing the change that is actually happening. Very recently, Amitabh Kant was saying that, we actually adding Australia in terms of number of houses in India every year.
Right.
So if those things come up and everybody is speaking in the same voice, and like Sanjay Aggarwal was saying, that industry is also supportive, industry is also not talking negative, they're also talking up the economy.
Yes.
Right? So all of these actually show that the leader is getting everyone along with him on the India growth story and taking it forward.
Right.
And it's very important for leaders to actually have that view. And I think Prime Minister Modi is, real model or real leader for others to follow in the world.
Right, absolutely. Communication is so important there. And as you mentioned, Mr. Chenoy, the one Australia that we are adding in terms of houses. In the old days, when I was in school, we used to talk about India adding one Australia in terms of just population. And today, it's an economic benchmark. But Mr. Aggarwal, how important is leadership really? The point that Mr. Chenoy made is really important for the government to speak in one voice, to communicate to the world. How important is it when you're looking at it from a business standpoint?
I think it is extremely important, because the confidence that an outsider has in our country basically is also dependent upon the message that one gets out of the communications from the leadership, the way the leadership is actually working and the way it is communicating both. So as far as the results are concerned, they are for us to all, for us to see, all of us, and those results are speaking for themselves. But at the same time, clarity of thought and how it is communicated to the outside world is also very important, because then that helps the world make up its mind about the way the country is going to go.
Right, absolutely. Sri there.
So just to add to your point, Sandeep, you said we can't predict the outcome of the election. Of course we can't. But I think the market has already voted for Mr. Modi. If you look at the numbers in the market today, the money that's coming in, it's already a clear sign, and people are voting with their wallets.
Yes,
it's not just empty talk.
That's a good line. The people voting with their wallets.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if, for whatever reason, let's say there's a change in government, I do think there will be a big drop in the market. There will be a steep correction that happens because it will be a shock to the system.
Yes.
If, let's say, there were any change in the government or leadership that you has mentioned. So I think that's something the markets are not factoring at right now, because what the markets are telling us, that they're very confident of Mr. Modi coming back, the leadership continuing. So that's the bet if you look at the market right now.
Yes, absolutely. And Amit, this point that Sri mentioned, that the markets are voting with their wallets, what's the sense that you got when you were talking to?
Yes, some of the experts we spoke to, they are not thinking about 272. For them, less than 350 is not good. And they were advising investors of News9 that you should not worry if it is less than 350, if it is 325, because the markets will pick up again. So that's the amount of optimism. A win is a given for them. So it will be a huge shock, as Sri was saying, if that does not happen.
The India shining moment as 20 years back. I mean, I think the opposition keeps mentioning that, 20 years back we saw this overconfidence and, but the markets dipped, but they corrected shortly after that. Given this is the incredible story of the fact that how political consensus has been achieved on something as crucial as economic reforms. But Mr. Chenoy, what is the general buzz? What does the market think about the elections? I mean, given the fact that I think that two things that the markets, the economy looks at most closely, one is the monsoons and the other is the outcome of political, poll results.
So, I think Sandeep, and like both Amit and Sri mentioned, the three announcements were made in the last 1 week. First was the Purchase Managers Index, which is at the highest ever in recorded history. Closely followed by the Service Purchase Managers Index, which is 61.2 or something like that. And very recently, I think yesterday or day before, SkyMet predicting a normal monsoon.
A normal monsoon, yes.
So, these three, indicators, and of course, there's also the, not so well tracked, but I'm sure the markets do track it, is the RBI consumer survey, consumer confidence survey, which also is at a high. So if you look at all of these four indicators in the short term, even without factoring in the elections, these are all enough to actually take any index, if it happens in any country, which is dependent upon this, you will find the same result in the stock market. But the long-term thing, as you were mentioning, that the markets always factor in the future. I think they're factoring in, as mentioned both by Amit and Sri, that they're factoring in the results in this case too.
And Mr. Aggarwal, is there any outlier? Is there any possibility of a black swan event that could take place, and maybe the markets could not predict that? And I'm aware of the fact that we are coming out after a pandemic, two simultaneous wars and a global economic meltdown. Is there anything you foresee in the next couple of months on the horizon that's an unknown, if I may use that expression?
So exactly the term that you used, unknown, or a black swan event, it's basically defined by not, anybody having been able to predict that. But let us assume for a moment that some black swan event does happen. For example, there is a possibility of an implosion in the Chinese economy, for example. It could happen. Now, it could have far-reaching impacts which people are not even able to predict right now. It could, have, various spillover effects, some positive, some negative, mostly negative overall for the world, because this Chinese economy is so hugely integrated into the world. But my confidence remains still the same. What I say is there will be temporary setbacks, there would be headwinds, there might be tailwinds, there might be minor issues, but as an economy, the Indian economy is on the long-term growth path, which probably we do not have any parallel in the world economy right now. We have a demographic dividend right till 2055, And that is a huge period during which the economy is going to be benefiting from the strength of our growth in the working age population also. I think all said and done, there is no reason to feel that there is any serious risk on the long term. Short term, there might be setbacks, there might be some euphoria, and there might be some difficulties, some black swan event also. But overall, the direction has to remain the same.
Overall, the direction is and the momentum you're saying you're giving it a 3-decade. Yes.
And one more thing I want to add. You see, what is really important now is it's not only the Indian money which is going into the stock exchange, and we are really not that much beholden to the foreign investor. But at the same time, who is the investor? That is very important. It is the very small investor, the small investor, all these regular investments into the funds that are being made on a monthly basis. All those SIPs and all. That is something which is a long-term vote of confidence, which is a habit which people have got into. And this sort of strength that the economy gets is not going to be replicated easily elsewhere.
Absolutely, a really long runway there, Sri. 3 decades.
So, Sandy, you asked about Black Swan. Now, that's always hard to predict, to tell what can potentially go. There are many things that can go wrong. But if I look at gold prices, I think there is a story which the cautious investors are trying to tell you. They do think that things could become a bit uncertain. Otherwise, it rarely happens. The equity markets are going up and the gold prices are also going up simultaneously, because gold is always seen as a defense. It's a hedge against uncertainty. So the fact that gold prices are hitting a new high tells you something, that the smart money is probably getting a little cautious. So we need to keep that in mind as well. That there's a gold story which everyone needs to be cognizant of. And especially small investors, they have to play their cards well. I think SIPs are the safest vehicles for investors to invest in stock market, to participate in the India story. They should not try and get into stocks directly, individual stocks, because that's fraught with a lot of risks and uncertainty. So play the SIP market, because you can always average your cost out. Even if the markets come down tomorrow, you'll get more of the units for the same price. So you can average it over long term. So that's the safest thing for our investors to do.
Sip, don't gulp, as Sri just said. But thanks very much there. That's a fabulous long-term view that our experts have given us this evening on the Indian economy barreling down the path of growth, and even a black swan event couldn't take it off course. That's what DILIP CHENOY and SANJAY AGGARWAL have just told us. Of course, Sridharan and my colleague Amit here have been tracking this story for far longer than the immediate market indicators. We've been looking at this story for a long time. The India story that's come to fruition after emerging from an unprecedented economic meltdown, a pandemic and a lockdown. India is back on course. The markets are roaring. As Sri just mentioned, they're voting with their wallets, and 2024 is going to be the year of another economic miracle. The India story taking off as it heads towards becoming the third largest economy by the end of this decade. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. And the market's manifesto is what we've been tracking in News9 Plus. For more on what the markets are saying about the 2024 elections, download our News9 Plus app and watch our story, The Market's Manifesto. Will the bull run last?
General elections are here. The stock market is never isolated from such national and global events. After a year of a bull run, 2024 started on a choppy note. And then came Black Wednesday. For those looking for ominous signs, it was the 13th of March. The small and mid-cap segments saw their weakest sentiment and their highest fall in nearly 2 years. Why? Because market regulator SEBI said that there was froth in the small and mid-cap stocks and ordered stress tests to be conducted by mutual fund houses every fortnight. This spooked the investors, and the index lost 14 lakh crore rupees in value in a single day. But it took only 2 weeks for the markets to pare their losses and just another 10 sessions or so to climb to newer heights. That's the kind of confidence being exhibited by investors participating in the India story.
There is stock market bonanza with markets touching near lifetime high as they expect the journey of India from 5th largest economy to 3rd largest economy, from under $4 trillion economy to over $7 trillion economy will get accelerated in the next term.
I'm not sure it's about bonanza time. I mean, I think, you have to look at a longer term period than that. But I think, the confidence is certainly back in the market. We had that kind of bit of a speed bump in the middle of March, when the regulator made noises about, overvaluation or overheating. And that we seem to have been past now. And so therefore I think the confidence is back, not just for the large caps, but I think for the small and mid caps, where the quality companies with strong fundamentals in the right sectors will continue to play out.
It's always the time to be a bull on India. You can only time that bullishness and you can increase, it's like listening to a nice Bollywood number, right, on a weekend. You want to listen to it, you want to dance to it. It's just about where you want the volume to be when you're listening to it. So I think it's best to stay bullish on India at all points. You can increase or decrease your bullishness.
Provided you have long-term time horizon, you will withstand 10, 15, 20% volatility of the market, and your return expectations are not based on past performance. Last 1 year, small cap funds would have delivered 30-40% return. Do not expect that kind of performance in next 1 year. And yes, do tighten your seat belt so that you can withstand volatility.
From pay package wars to placement challenges, IIT students are grappling with a tough job market. Now, generally in India, in IITs, the placement process unfolds in 3 stages. The initial 2 phases take place in December and February, followed by the final phase in May. But this year, many students have failed to secure placements and they're starting to feel the pressure. At IIT Bombay, for example, 32% of students were not placed last year in 2023. And the number is up to 36% this year. It's the same story across all IIT campuses. These statistics reveal an alarming trend. So what are the implications for students, the workforce, and the broader economy? Also, is this due to the economic slowdown or global meltdown? Are the companies looking for candidates with specialized expertise? Is AI taking over jobs? Joining me to discuss this evening are Professor Anindya Chatterjee and my colleague Sridharan Ramakrishnan. Good evening, Professor Chatterjee. Welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Professor Chatterjee, why are IIT students not getting placements? There's major anxiety over across India if your benchmark index of IIT job placements isn't happening. Then what are we talking about the economy firing on all cylinders?
Some of these questions are too big for me to handle. So,
right.
What the economy is doing, there are, you have many experts and they're talking about it, and I would like to leave it at that. However, in terms of jobs, certainly numbers seem to be down. And I would suggest that in the backdrop, there is an important story, which is that in the last year and a bit more, there have been a very large number of layoffs in the tech industry, right, in the software industry. Now, I was talking to a young software engineer and I was telling him, how has it impacted you? From his viewpoint, it was okay, right? But actually, that's a job that a newcomer was not able to take. So in some sense, that number of jobs has disappeared. And in the IIT system, I think that many of the jobs that our students aspire to are tied in some way, directly or indirectly, to the growth and the health and the wealth of the software industry. Software services, software related things, work that is done in India, which has a strong tech component, right? So if the number of jobs disappears, there is going to be an effect that is very rapidly felt, and perhaps that is the effect being felt. What the longer term picture is is to emerge, right? I mean, there are many predictions. People have different views. I think it is certainly true that AI will be able to do a lot of things. So one of my close friends in the software industry, he's done well. He's an entrepreneur. What he was telling me is that I'm saying, I'm putting my friend here because I'm a mechanical engineering professor, but he's a software guy, studied computer science, lives in California, he's very wealthy, and he did well. So what he says is that a very high quality programmer now is sort of supercharged with the AI tools. So they are able to do work, at maybe 4 times the intensity or efficiency that they were able to achieve earlier. Right. And this would mean that many people who are rushing in, who are not at that high level of performance, right? They would have done fine in earlier times. Maybe they will struggle now. The thing that worries me is not that IIT students are not getting placed. You see, in IITs, they are used to getting somewhat higher salaries, right? Yes. I mean, in India, 2% of the population files non-zero salary income, income tax return, right? IITians will get placed in the top 10% of that 2%, then they are not even very happy sometimes. They want to be in the top 2% of the top.
Right,
yes? That's their aspiration. So if they move down the value chain, they will get placed, right? Yes. But you think of the thousands of colleges which has enrollments in software, where those kids are not going to be able to move to another emergent area. Suppose a lot of mechanical engineering jobs are available, maybe not paying so much. But these people who are now enrolled in computer science in second year, they are committed. They are going to, in 2 more years or 2.5 more years, they are going to graduate. And so if the market keeps going down in the tech industry, then it may not be such a nice time for them.
Absolutely. Sri, this, where they say you can tell when a tsunami is approaching, when the tide starts, receding very quickly. Is that what's happening now? Are the IITs actually the canaries in the, in the coal shaft, where they are at the forefront of the tech industry, which is actually hiring fewer jobs because of AI?
So what's to my mind is really happening, Sandy, is that AI is now being seen as a big bad grizzly bear, which is freezing companies into like fear.
Yes.
So what companies are doing at this point, I think, is this. They're hitting the pause button on fresh hiring. What they're telling themselves is, let's look at how can we use the AI, generative AI technology to optimal, purposes and effect. And then assess what is the real need, what kind of skills do we need, and how many of those people do we really need. So I think this is an assessment phase which is going on, because don't forget, AI is literally only 2 years old.
Yes, absolutely.
It reached a critical tipping point only 2 years ago. So I think maybe another 1.5 years, we'll have clarity in terms of what AI is going to do and not going to do. So I think till then, there is going to be some sort of a paralysis when it comes to recruitment. But I don't think our kids, especially the kids from IITs, need to really worry, because what I would urge them is not to think of employment, but think of how can you become employment creators. Because if you have the IIT badge, if you can form a team, I mean, there are plenty of investors, plenty of VCs who are willing to put money behind you if you have a good idea. So I would urge these students not to get disheartened, rather think, how do I become from a job seeker to a job giver as an entrepreneur?
Of course.
Because that's exactly what our Prime Minister has also been saying. That we need more entrepreneurs. And there are many startups which are flourishing all across smaller tier cities. So I think this might actually be seen as an opportunity for our best minds in engineering to actually get onto the innovation bandwagon and stop seeking jobs and like becoming coders for companies, but become creators of new wealth for the economy.
Absolutely, and given the fact that we are the 3rd largest number of startups in the world.
Absolutely.
But Sri, there's also this thing of the IITs being a tool of social mobility and economic mobility, where you get into an IIT and you're assured of like a 1 crore job, starting, pay package. I think a lot of attention, newspaper headlines, us included, have highlighted this fact that, this so-and-so student got placed at 1 crore or, 2 crores.
So, Sandy, as an editor of a previous organization, I ran these salaries surveys for like many years. And the optics are very different from the reality. So the headline grabbing 1 crore packages is just like, for maybe one person.
Yes.
And even if you were to drill down into the detail of that package, you will see that it's actually not 1 crore. There are many things that get added to inflate that figure. Right. I think the average salary which an IITian would make on graduating would probably about 20 to 25 lakhs from a good IIT.
Right.
So this 1 crore is not a very big number.
Right.
So I don't really want to hold that up as what every IITian should make.
Right.
So I think they need to get real and look at the real numbers that come from placements.
Right. The real numbers that come from placements, and the numbers don't seem to be very encouraging as of this year and indeed the last year. But Professor Chatterjee, you think there's a need to reassess the IITians themselves? They need to relook the way they are, looking at their careers. Maybe, as Sri mentioned, become job creators, get into startups rather than seek jobs themselves for foreign companies, for instance.
Anyone who creates jobs is welcome, is a gift to the country, helps people and so on, right? But as you are aware, there is a huge competition to get into IITs, to IAS, to post office, bank jobs, police, army, railways. Yes, I mean, 1 crore people apply, right, for railway jobs, right? All of these jobs, every single one of them, they will have non-zero salary income deducted at source.
Right.
That means all of these people are competing to be in that 2%.
Right.
IITs have 10,000 students. Let there be 500 successful entrepreneurs every year. You still need 9,500 jobs.
Yes.
Yes. So looking for employment is going to be the dominant career story.
Right.
And the 1 crore package is a deep disservice that is somehow done to the parents of the students who sort of have these dreams. And it, in some way, it feeds into the pocketbooks of coaching companies, because parents then send their children for coaching, even children whose chances rationally assessed are not very high, right? I mean, so in some sense, coaching classes give mobility. One village boy told me, and he shut me up, because I was saying, coaching classes are not good. And he shut me up. He said, sir, from my village, there is only one road that goes up, and that is JEE coaching. And then I had nothing to tell him. So it's true, but think of the national cost. I mean, see, if the success rate is 1% and everyone is studying 10 hours, you come in and everyone studies 14 hours. The success rate will be still 1%. Everyone studies 20 hours, it will still be 1%. Everyone lifts weights, it will still be 1%, right? So in some sense, the coaching class can't change the numbers. And most of these kids will be looking for jobs. And because of the prior hype, they expect jobs that are, very high paying. Just to give you 20 lakhs, if I may, can I take just another half a minute?
Yes, absolutely.
On this question?
Please go ahead, Professor.
So let me give you some context. 2 years ago, out of interest, I looked at Government of India income tax data. Right? So that is where, so that data was then 2 years old because it's the assessment year. Now, in that data, 3 crore people filed non-zero income tax and non-zero income, in their income tax returns, and a salary of 20 lakhs was in the 97th percentile.
Right.
So if the stated figure of 20 lakhs is correct, that means the typical IIT student is already getting in the top 3% of the top 2%.
Right.
And if they are then disappointed because they did not get 1 crore, this disappointment is in their head. It is not rational.
Right. But see, what's the long-term point of
Can
this?
I just make an interesting observation to our viewers also, because as you know that our MD and CEO, Mr. Barun Das, is an IITian himself. And one of the things he keeps telling youngsters is to manage the expectation. Because if there's a big gap between what you expect and what you end up with, then you're going to be unhappy. So I think, to Professor's point, I think it's very important for children in IIT to calibrate their expectation and not go by that 1 crore, because that's just an optic. It's not the real story.
Right, it's not the real story. And indeed, given the challenges that we have in the job market these days, Sri, as you mentioned, it's, they're frozen, because of the incoming tsunami of AI, and they're recalibrating their strategies. Do you see the need for some kind of reassessment of the kind of skill sets that we are looking at in IITs particularly, given the need to retrain our workforce maybe?
So the honest answer right now is that no one knows.
Right.
Because even the best of companies are still trying to figure out. They know
yes.
that certain low-end skills can be easily eliminated. It
right.
can all be automated. You can have AI agents and tools which can do the job for you.
Yes.
Professor mentioned about low-end coding. That's already gone to my
right.
mind.
Right.
So you will need people with really high skills. But
yes.
like I said, companies are still trying to figure this out. And that's why this pause, to my mind,
right.
is happening. And it's not just here in India, Sandy.
Yes.
If I look at, I've been speaking to people in the US. I have, kids who are like studying in the US, and they tell me that even in the best of universities, for
yes.
example, Cornell, there
right.
are certain programs where kids are not getting placed at all.
Right.
Entire class graduates and they are jobless.
Right, absolutely.
So why is it? Because kids aren't dumb.
Right.
Right? I mean, you went to Cornell, you made it to Cornell, so
yes.
obviously you're not dumb, just like, the kids with IIT in Delhi.
Right.
So, or IIT system. So what's really happening is that the employers have hit a pause
right.
in some sense. They're saying, okay, let's figure this out.
right.
How is this AI thing going to really impact us?
Yes.
Because US in particular, we are getting record, numbers in terms of employment growth.
Right.
So it's only that high-end skill, which is like, that's like under effect right now.
High-end skills under effect right now
because of AI.
In the US, because of AI, and similar thing seems to be happening in India
yes.
with the IITs. Professor Chatterjee, thanks for joining us this evening. My colleague Sri, talking about the strange phenomenon of jobless IITians. Is it because of the incoming artificial intelligence wave, or is it because companies are reassessing their employers, the kind of employees that they need to cope up with this new invasion of the machines, if you can put it that way? Only time will tell. But thanks very much for joining me this evening, gentlemen, on this aspect of the jobless IITians, the new phenomenon, that's the fear that's enveloped our IITs, our very premier educational institutions in India. Thanks for watching.